Continuity is the enemy of your enemies. It's so easy to get confused by your enemies. A lot of people have a difficult time with that basic assumption that you even have enemies, that it isn't all in your head. And if you have gaslighting enemies, they love that. They love you to not think of them as enemies. It's all in your head. You don't have enemies. But the way the world works, we're all in competition with each other to some extent, even as we're cooperating with each other. That's true of pair-bonded mates who cooperate with each other but also compete with each other at the same time. And that's pretty much the human condition. We do compete with each other without even the need for it. I was driving along this morning in a 70-mile-per-hour zone on the Turnpike, Pennsylvania Turnpike, coming back from Pittsburgh. And I was starting out slowly, so I was going 65 to kind of, because it's twisty, and I wanted to kind of get my coffee percolating in my veins. And there was another guy in front of me going about 65, 64. So I was just kind of coming up behind him and then backing off. And I stayed behind him for a couple of miles. And then I decided I was warmed up enough to start going 70. So I cranked it up, throttled up, and as soon as I got over in the left lane to pass him, he decided to speed up to 70. Sometimes that happens if you're not using your cruise control, whether you're aware of it or not. You're just subconsciously competitive. Hey, I don't want him to get ahead of me. It's dangerous to pass people though, so if you're a trucker and you speed up when people try to pass you the way cars do, you suck. You don't deserve to be called a professional. If somebody's passing you reminds you that you should be going faster too, then you should just wait until they pass you. Give them a few miles and then pass them again if you have to. But we all should be more conscious of our speed than that if we're professional drivers. And that includes Amazon vans and taxis and everybody who drives for a living. We should all pay attention to our speed. But that's an aside. With enemies, it's confusing, and they intend it to be so if you accept the basic premise that we have enemies. It's confusing to know who an enemy is and if they're acting as an enemy. Enemies take breaks and they just let things slide, and that helps them because then you let your guard down. Some of the things they say are benign or even helpful. Often helpful. That's funny. Some of the biggest enemies in my life have told me some very helpful things. So when you're trying to sort all that out, you need help. You need
in 1/2 mile,
solid,
turn right on River Road.
You need solid, confident, cool, collected thinking so you can sort out all of the mixed messages from friends and enemies alike, and friends who are acting as enemies, and enemies who are acting as friends. My truck GPS told me that there was traffic on my route, and there would be a 1-minute delay, and that's on a rural, country, bucolic road, so I thought, I wonder what the delay is. There doesn't seem to be much traffic. And right at our favorite bridge here at Blue Rock, we must have some kind of one-lane road situation. At least that's what the sign said. And I came just as it was my turn to go. That's pretty good. Let's see if we can get him to wait for us. He doesn't have to wait very long when I'm going this way. And he didn't. Even so, the back of my trailer comes really close to the passing truck's mirrors as they go the opposite direction. So one way you can be sure to thwart your enemies is to be successful. Because no enemy worth being called an enemy wants you to succeed. They may act like they want you to succeed, but they don't actually want you to succeed. That's the litmus test, is they don't want you to succeed. So, to be successful, you need to be continuous. You need to have continuity in your life. If you're going to lose weight, if you're going to get in shape, if you're going to be successful at work, or successful with women, anything that makes you feel competent and strong. Let's check out. We got one fast spinner and one no spinner. I guess they want half power today. She said her little speech early, so I wonder if she'll say it again right here, where she usually does. That's funny. Continuity. We were just talking about continuity, and my GPS doesn't have it. So when you are trying to have continuity in your life, it's difficult. Think about that bell-shaped curve I was talking about yesterday. If you want to be out in the tail of that bell-shaped curve, you're going to be a very consistent person. You're going to work out consistently. You're going to eat healthy food consistently. You're just going to be amazing. Because how else can you be out in that tail end of the bell-shaped curve unless you're amazing? And that's what it takes. So as you suck up your courage and your willpower every day, part of it can be that it makes your enemies upset when you do so. Pull it in 6th gear. We might even have to shift down to 5th gear on this one. It's a heavy fluid load from Mountville, and you don't have to go over any scales. I'm not saying it's overweight, but it's definitely up to weight. I'll shift down once more just so I don't have to slosh things around too much up here. Even if a person isn't exactly your enemy, you'll get messed up if you get sucked into another person's agenda and think it's important. If what someone else says or wants is really, really important, then you'll give up your own frame, your own power, and you'll develop a sense of urgency, which is always a warning flag, a sense of urgency to do things the way they want, as opposed to just calmly and happily making other people happy as it comes to you, into your agenda, into your frame. It may sound like splitting hairs, but it really is important that you stay in your own frame. Again, I'm talking to myself always. It's important that you stay in your own frame and come at things from your own agenda, which hopefully is benevolent to others. As soon as you start to get sucked into another person's frame, into their agenda, especially if they intend you harm or just are competing with you and wish you not to succeed so that they feel better about themselves, then you'll be sucked into something that debilitates you. You'll be sucked into a situation or a set of circumstances. Most of all, you'll be sucked into an attitude of trying to make someone else happy, which almost never works. So as you keep your own oxygen mask on and you keep yourself in good spirits, you'll help other people a lot more than if you're frantically trying to keep them happy. And it almost always works out that the harder you try to make someone else happy, the less happy they are. And when we're talking about being attractive, Nothing is quite as attractive as when you see that you're out of alignment with someone else's frame and it doesn't cause you any distress. It may even cause you to feel humorous. And then other people, if they see it, especially if it isn't the person whose frame you're out of alignment with, they see that you just don't care that much if you're out of alignment. It'll work out. Take a deep breath. It's fine. Everything will be fine. Children, I know, hate that. They get into their own frame so much that when you're not on board with it, and I don't mean to belittle them, or because it could feel like that, but if you teach them through example not to take themselves too seriously, or their plans, or their frame, you know, their orientation, their agenda, to be willing to let go of it, and you can demonstrate that. You can lead by example. You can be willing to let go of your own frame when, even if it's something important. It doesn't mean you give up your autonomy. It doesn't mean you give up your self-worth. It just means you're flexible. And if you're like the little tailor, you'll end up with something else that fits what you really want, even more than what you expected. You just expect things are going to work out for the good. And if you can teach your children that, just to hang loose and expect things are going to work out one way or another in your favor, in their favor, that'll serve them well throughout their lives, and hopefully they'll pass that on to the next generations. Here's another way to separate the wheat from the chaff when you're trying to figure out who your enemies are, or who's acting like an enemy. When you stay calm, when you are bumping into someone else's agenda, that person, if they're rooting for you, they'll be inspired by your calmness, and they'll calm down too, because they believe that your agenda and their agenda match, or can. But someone who's not wanting you to succeed, when you stay calm in the face of a conflict with their agenda, they will panic. They will become more urgent. They will tell you how important it is that you fit into their plans, into their frame, into their agenda. And then you'll know, for you to appease them, you have to give up. You have to sacrifice your own frame, your own agenda. But someone who's really with you, someone's on board with you, on your team, they don't require that. They don't require you to give yourself up, to sacrifice your own frame. On the other hand, an enemy absolutely requires it, even if it doesn't seem to matter. Even if your way is just as good, and they can see and admit that it's just as good, they still lose their shit when they see that you're not willing to give up their frame. What makes a psychopath happy is the control she or he has over you, and not the agenda itself. The agenda is to make you give up your agenda. That's pretty much the only agenda with a psychopath. That's what gives them their jollies. About what happens when you feel a sense of urgency to make someone else happy, or to keep them from getting angry. If you are in a personal relationship of any kind, that puts you in a place where you're being controlled by someone else. And it makes them not respect you, it makes them not appreciate you, not value you, because they see how easy it is to get you to conform. And valuable people don't do that. Kind, valuable people don't do that. In order to be kind, you have to be strong enough to insist on what you know is right. fighting off control freaks. Now at the micro level, at the personal level, you can see how that works. At the macro level, at the socio-political level, you can see how with your employer or with the government or with the oligarchy who owns the government, when you are in the frame of being overly concerned about other people's agendas, about not pissing them off, about keeping them happy with you, about keeping them from yelling at you or complaining or criticizing, when you're in that frame of appeasing at the macro level, you cause your fellow workers harm. For the glorious revolution that's coming, we need to stop feeling that way collectively. We need to be not overly concerned about our master's agenda. So if we have a rugged sense of individualism, which is a hallmark of the right, of the libertarians, and of the left libertarians, as well as the right, that's where Ayn Rand comes in. You could be a leftist, a collectivist, and still value and see the need for rugged individualism. You need people who can maintain their own frame working together. So it's a combination of being strong as an individual and then seeing how you can cooperate without getting sucked in too much to other people and what they want from you, the people whose agendas match yours. And they have to be strong people. It won't work with weak people. So we have to do the work to become strong individually before we can work together well as a collective. There's a person in your life, or a person you want to have in your life, that you can't live without. You put yourself in a place where you can easily be sucked into their frame. Even if they're a very good person, that can be an awful situation to be in when you're sucked into someone else's frame. You don't own your own identity. So if there's a wonderful person that you've been really pining for, or someone who's already in your life that you wish you could be closer to, you're going to be messed up if you just can't imagine living without that person, because it means you're not happy in your own frame. You want to be on someone else's team, you want someone else to be leading, you want to be the cameo in their movie, or you can't picture yourself being happy. I don't see how two people can be happy together until they're both strong as individuals and they're both happy alone. I was talking to somebody about Tom Cruise's character in what is that movie? Jerry Maguire. In the movie Jerry Maguire, his character is codependency waiting to happen. It doesn't matter who the other person is, because he's already half of a codependent relationship, because he doesn't know how to be happy by himself. And that is a problem. You're better off figuring out that you can be ecstatically happy on your own. And then you start to see how to get along with someone else without giving away all of your power, which they don't even want. If they're honest, they don't, good faith people don't want you to give up all of your power to be with them. And if they aren't good faith, and you've made them so important that you feel that you can't live without them, your life is going to be hell. So figure that out. We were talking about how to tell your enemies from your friends. If they can't be happy with you being autonomous, if they can't be happy until you are urgently trying to keep them happy, then you definitely are better off without them.